Hi friends, Mindy here. I have a process video for you today. It's going to be a pretty quick, simple one. This is for day 4 of Pure in Heart from Bythewell4God. I am working in my little traveler's notebook junk journal that I made. I have a process video for that. I will try to link that playlist down below. I'm starting out with putting some deli paper back behind these pages to kind of protect my surface from what I'm planning to do here today. But first I want to start with just giving this page here on the left just a little bit of a background color. I'm not worried about getting perfect coverage here. I just want to lay down just a little bit of color. So I'm using Bundled Sage Distress Oxide. I love this color. I'm just going to kind of put it on here. Again, I'm not looking for perfection here. I just wanted to add a little bit of color just to knock back some of that white that's there because I'm going to be using some modeling paste. So I'm kind of fighting with my deli paper over here. In the end, I decided to just go ahead and take some mint tape and run down the side of that, which is what I'm doing here. This is just a low tack tape, like a masking tape, and I can put it on here and now I won't have to worry about trying to hold that other piece of deli paper in there. So I am going to pull out a clear acrylic block and my light and fluffy modeling paste from the Crafter's Workshop and a palette knife. And I'm going to put some of this paste here on my little acrylic block. I like to use these. It's just an easy way to kind of clean everything up. And then I'm actually going to be tinting this with Distress paint. And I love Distress paint. I have not used it in a minute. I used to use it all the time when I was really doing like mixed media canvases and art journaling and that kind of stuff. And I tend to use it more when I'm doing those kinds of things. But I wanted to use it here. I'm just adding it gradually to get the color that I wanted because I don't want to, because it's a little bit more liquidy than like a craft paint or like a heavy bodied acrylic. It can thin down the modeling paste a little bit. So I just kind of wanted to be careful that I could still get the color that I wanted, but not lose the consistency of this light and fluffy modeling paste. So I got it to the green color that I wanted. I added a little bit more, and then I'm coming in with just a little tiny bit of Vintage Photo, and I'm going to kind of not mix these together. I really want those kind of lines and striations in the paint. And so I'm being very careful to not overmix that. So, but I wanted some of that depth of color, kind of the same way that the pumpkins are, where it has just like the dark browns and everything in there. And I'm using this stencil that released this month. It kind of looks like the ceiling tiles. I can't remember the name of this stencil, but I just really love this stencil. And so you can see even here when I'm placing the stencil down, I'm running that modeling paste through there. I'm being very careful not to like keep going back over the same place because I don't want to mix those colors. I want those variations of color in there between the green and the Vintage Photo. So I'm being very careful. I got a little thick close to the gutter, but that's just because it was hard to kind of keep it flat. So I ended up getting a little bit of that on the back side of my stencil, which I will clean off here in a little bit. And then I'm trying to figure out where this stencil is a repeating stencil, so I'm trying to figure out where to place it. And in an ideal world, you would let that first set dry and then move on to the next set. But I like to live on the edge, so I just am very careful when I place it down to not like smush down onto the part that I have already put down. And then this is where I'm having to clean it off of the backside because I did get a little of that modeling paste on the backside of my stencil and I don't want to smush it out onto my page again. And here is where I'm trying to figure out how to make this stencil pattern repeat and make sure I'm getting it kind of lined up. And I had a thick little part there I was trying to flatten down just a little bit. You can see on that right side the modeling paste did seep through the stencil because I didn't have it perfectly flat. That's a problem when you're kind of working in a lumpy book. It kind of does that. So I'm not worried about it though. And then so you can see here I just went ahead and placed the stencil down. I did not get this lined up as perfectly as I had wanted to. It's not quite straight, which does annoy me a little bit, but I'm gonna fix it here in a minute. Originally I was just gonna leave this blank, but because I didn't get it lined up like I wanted to, I will end up kind of covering that area that's not quite as the way that I want to. So I'm going to set this off to dry, and then with all of this modeling paste that I have left over on my stencil and on my little acrylic block over there, I'm going to pull in a tag and just use the leftovers to kind of decorate this tag. I don't know if I'll use this tag in this journal in the future or if I will use it for another project. And then as I was cleaning up, I realized that my vintage photo had spilled out of the lid. And so I'm just picking all that up with my palette knife because I didn't want to dirty a brush. And I have a really ginormous like manila tag here that I'm going to put all of that paint on. So I just didn't want to waste it. And there was no way to get it obviously back in there. So I'm just going to add it to this really big stencil, and this will, again, either go in the journal later on that I'm working on, or it will go in another project down the road. So I like to do this. I don't like to waste my products, and so if even in an instance where I spill it like this, I'm going to try to salvage it. So one of the things that's great about distressed paints is that they react to water. And so they do really fun things when you mix them. Like I said, I love distress paint. And so what I'm doing here is I'm actually spraying coffee on here. And I just keep coffee in a little spray bottle for when I want to like easily coffee dye things. So I just sprayed it on there, and now I'm just going to hit it with my heat tool, and it kind of creates all these rivulets and things and just fun things. And so I will just set that to the side, and I will use it at some point down the road. Like I said, there are a lot of really fun things that you can do with distress paint. One of the neat things about distress paint too, I just want to make this plug because it's just really good, is that the finish of it is different than like a craft paint from, like your hobby type craft acrylic paints. And so because it has a different finish when it dries, once it dries, it's permanent. But it's easier to write on than some acrylic paints. And I find that when I use it in my Bible, I don't get that sticky feeling. Some acrylic paints can get like real sticky. There was a line from Target that was like the Handmade Modern line. And I did not like those paints because they kind of had a sticky, like a tacky finish to them. And so distress paints do not do that. So there's just a little plug if you have never used distress paints. They're a lot of fun to use. Maybe I will do a video with those down the road just because they're a lot of fun. So while I was yammering on about distress paint, I am pulling in this little file folder. I want to add this to that little tip-in of the pumpkin paper just to hold my little flashcards. And this is when I decide I want to go ahead and just trim down some of the pattern paper. I'm going to create a little pocket over there on the left side just because I want to cover up that area. It was just really bothering me. So in hindsight, if I would have known I was going to do that, I wouldn't have even stenciled over there. But I really wanted the stencil to be on the full page, but I just couldn't deal with it with it being not lined up right. So I'm just going to add some of this glue along the edge, and I ended up adding it along the edge of the paper and along the edge of my little pattern paper, just so that I made sure that it would stick down really well to create my pocket. And I have my journaling cards already finished with all of my scriptures and notes and stuff on the back of them. And so I'm just going to tuck them in this little pocket over here. They're a little tricky to get in because that page is so textured, but they will be okay. And then I'm going to kind of move my attention now over to the little file folder part. I want to put my title for the day. I've been using these Bethlehem numbers for each day to show, I love these numbers, to show the day. So I have my number 4. I'm using archival ink in ground espresso here to stamp this. And I just find that works really well. And I love the dark brown color of it. So I'm putting it here, and then I didn't have enough ink on there, so I'm going to have to restamp this. This is just the reality. Sometimes things just don't go the way that you want them to go, or you think. I was kind of on the struggle bus with this page, honestly, but it's okay. So I just restamped it again, and the benefit of it being like a little distressed looking is that it can be imperfect and it's fine. So I'm putting my title, which is Those Who Mourn. We're talking about in the Beatitudes, blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. And one of the things that Tom talks about on this day is that, of course, the Lord is there to comfort us when we are in mourning for the loss of a loved one or something like that. But there's another aspect to that, which is really kind of lamenting for the sins and things that we have committed, and truly being repentant about those kinds of things. And we can receive comfort that, our sins are forgiven, and that the Lord is there for us in that way, as well as being our comforter. So it's kind of looking at both aspects of mourning in that way on this day. And so I am adding a little sticker up here at the top just to kind of bring balance to this. I had wanted to put that section that said those who mourn down at the bottom, but it was just too, I didn't have enough space for it. So I added a little bit of faux washi down at the bottom. In hindsight, I wish I would have thinned, made that a smaller piece, like not as wide. But again, it just happens. Sometimes you just don't have, it doesn't turn out the way you had anticipated. So that's just what happened here. So I went through my die cuts and I wanted to add something kind of a focal image to create some balance on this page. So I am going to use this door image. I'm just adding some archival ink around the outside, again, just to kind of blend that out, get rid of some of the white that's on there. And I'm only going to glue this to the section that's the little pocket part. So you'll see me, I'm only gluing half of this die cut piece, and I will kind of glue this down, and then I'm going to stick my fingers back there just to make sure that I didn't get any glue where I didn't want it. And then my little cards, you can see, will just kind of tuck in there. And that is pretty much it for me for day 4. Super simple day. I really love that stencil though, and so I wanted to use that on this page. So if you like this video, I would appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and until next time, bye.